Chapter 1. Emotions Run the Show. Why EQ Matters More Than IQ. Think back to the last time you walked into a room where you didn't know anyone. Maybe it was a work event, a networking function, or even a family gathering with distant relatives you hadn't seen in years. Before a single word was spoken, something happened, didn't it? You could feel the atmosphere. Maybe it was warm and open, with relaxed body language and easy smiles. Or maybe there was tension in the air, stiff postures, hesitant glances, energy that made you feel like you were walking on eggshells. Without consciously trying, your brain was scanning the room. It picked up subtle cues, shifts in posture, micro-expressions on faces, the emotional undercurrent flowing between people. Within seconds, you formed opinions about who was comfortable, who was anxious, who held power, and who was being ignored. This isn't some sixth sense or mystical ability. It's your emotional intelligence at work, the invisible superpower you've been using your entire life, often without realizing it. And here's the part most people miss. This ability, this internal radar, doesn't just help you read others, it shapes how they read you too. Every time you walk into a room, engage in a conversation, or react to a difficult situation, your emotions are speaking before you ever open your mouth. They broadcast themselves through your facial expressions, the way you carry yourself, your tone, and even the pauses between your words. Long before logic gets a chance to weigh in, emotions have already framed the interaction. The myth of pure logic. Why smart people fail. For years, we were told that intelligence and talent were the ultimate predictors of success. Get the right degree. Learn the right skills. Outwork everyone, and you'll thrive. Except, we all know people who are brilliant, but can't hold a conversation. People with advanced degrees who crumble under pressure. Experts who know everything about their field but constantly rub people the wrong way. Leaders whose teams silently resist them. Professionals who can't stop self-sabotaging. The missing piece is emotional intelligence. IQ may help you solve problems on paper, but EQ determines whether you can handle stress, build trust, and persuade others to see your vision. Talent may get your foot in the door, but your emotional intelligence dictates whether people actually want to work with you once you're inside. The uncomfortable truth is this. Your success in work, relationships, and even personal happiness depends far more on how you manage emotions, both yours and others, than on how much you know. The emotional operating system running your life. Right now, in every moment of your life, emotions are shaping your behavior. They dictate how you respond to criticism, how you interpret silence in a conversation, how confident you feel walking into a meeting, and how resilient you are after a setback. And it happens faster than you think. Neuroscientists have found that your emotional brain reacts to events within milliseconds, far faster than your rational brain can process them. Before you have a chance to think, this is not a big deal, your emotional circuitry has already triggered physiological reactions, tightening your stomach, speeding up your heart, altering your breathing. Most people never learn how to interrupt that process. They live at the mercy of emotional impulses they don't understand, interpreting their reactions as just the way I am. But here's the truth. Emotions are not random. They follow patterns. And those patterns, if left unexamined, silently write the script of your life. If you learned early that expressing your needs got you punished or ignored, you might still avoid speaking up today. If you experienced rejection or betrayal, your brain may still interpret innocent feedback as a personal attack. If you grew up in chaos, your nervous system may default to scanning for threats even in calm situations. Without awareness, these patterns control you. With awareness, you can rewrite them. The cost of low emotional intelligence. Let's get painfully honest for a moment. Think about opportunities you've missed not because you lacked intelligence, but because you didn't know how to handle your emotions. That job interview where you froze under pressure. That difficult conversation you avoided until the relationship fell apart. That conflict where you lost your temper, damaging your credibility. That opportunity you hesitated on, paralyzed by fear of rejection. These moments rarely happen because you lack skills. They happen because you lacked emotional agility, the ability to stay calm, process your feelings, and respond intentionally instead of reacting impulsively. And it's not just the obvious crises where EQ matters. Low emotional intelligence shapes your life in subtle ways every day. Misinterpreting someone's silence as disapproval, and spiraling into insecurity. taking constructive feedback personally, and either getting defensive or withdrawing completely. Assuming someone's bad mood is your fault, and altering your behavior to fix it. Replaying awkward conversations in your mind for days, tormenting yourself with what I should have said. These are all symptoms of low emotional awareness and regulation, living at the mercy of your emotions instead of working with them. The invisible superpower of high EQ. Now, let's flip the script. Imagine having the ability to stay calm in high-pressure situations, thinking clearly while others panic. Read the emotions others can't articulate, adjusting your approach effortlessly. Handle criticism without taking it personally, seeing it as data, not an attack. Disarm conflict by addressing the emotions beneath the argument, not just the words. Build relationships where people feel understood, even when you disagree. Inspire trust and loyalty, not because you demand it, but because people sense they can relax and be themselves around you. That's the power of emotional intelligence. It's not about being touchy-feely or suppressing your emotions to seem polite. It's about knowing yourself so well that you choose your responses, and understanding others so well that you naturally adapt to meet them where they are. It's leadership without intimidation, influence without manipulation, confidence without arrogance. Why emotional intelligence is a learnable skill. Here's the best news. Unlike IQ, which plateaus early in life, emotional intelligence can be improved at any age. Your brain is wired for change, a concept called neuroplasticity. With practice, you can rewire old emotional patterns, build stronger self-awareness, improve your ability to pause before reacting, sharpen your empathy radar, master the art of influencing others without force. The more you practice these skills, the easier they become, until they're second nature. The emotional intelligence advantage, backed by science. Studies consistently show that people with high EQ earn more money, on average, $29,000 more per year, have stronger, more fulfilling relationships, experience lower stress levels, navigate workplace politics more effectively, are seen as more trustworthy leaders, handle criticism and feedback better, bounce back faster from setbacks. In other words, developing emotional intelligence doesn't just improve your emotional life, it directly impacts your career, income, and long-term success. Your starting point, a simple challenge. Right now, you have a choice. You can keep letting emotions control you, reacting the way you always have, hoping for better results. Or you can decide to become the architect of your emotional world. Start small. Over the next 24 hours, practice this. Each time you feel a strong emotion, frustration, anxiety, defensiveness, pause. Don't suppress it. Don't act on it immediately. Just pause and ask, what exactly am I feeling? What triggered this feeling? Is this reaction helpful, or is it an old pattern playing out? That single pause is the doorway to everything we'll explore together. It's where emotional intelligence begins, with the courage to pause, reflect, and choose. In the next chapter, we'll break down the core components of emotional intelligence, and why mastering each one is the key to unlocking influence, connection, and control over your future. Because when you master your emotions, you master your life. Chapter 2. What is emotional intelligence, really? If you ask 10 people to define intelligence, you'll likely get similar answers. Problem-solving ability, memory, analytical thinking, quick learning. Intelligence, at least the way we've traditionally measured it, is largely about how well your brain handles information. But emotional intelligence, that's something entirely different. Emotional intelligence, often called EQ, isn't about how much you know or how quickly you solve puzzles. It's about how well you understand and navigate the complex, messy, and often irrational world of human emotions, both your own and those of the people around you. And if traditional intelligence helps you succeed in school, emotional intelligence helps you succeed everywhere else. The core 5. What emotional intelligence is made of. Researchers and psychologists have broken emotional intelligence into 5 interconnected abilities. These 5 form the foundation of how you experience emotions internally, how you process them, and how you show up in the world. 1. Self-awareness. knowing what you feel and why. Self-awareness is ground zero for emotional intelligence. If you can't name your feelings, if you don't understand what's happening inside you, you can't control it, and you certainly can't communicate it to anyone else. Most people are shockingly unaware of their emotions. They might know they feel off or stressed, but they can't pinpoint the actual emotions driving those sensations. Frustration, disappointment, guilt, fear. When you lack self-awareness, your emotions drive your behavior from the shadows. You react to life instead of responding to it. The better you can recognize your feelings, as they arise, not just afterward, the more power you have to choose your responses. Self-awareness also includes understanding your patterns, the recurring emotional triggers, automatic reactions, and deep-seated beliefs that shape how you respond to the world. It's about being curious enough to ask, why does this always push my buttons? What story am I telling myself when this happens? Without self-awareness, you are a passenger in your emotional life. With it, you step into the driver's seat. 2. Self-regulation. Controlling your reactions instead of letting them control you. Self-regulation is the skill of pausing, even for a split second, before your emotions take the wheel. It's the difference between firing off an angry email you regret and composing a measured, strategic response. It's what allows you to respond to stress with flexibility instead of rigidity. This isn't about suppressing emotions. Suppression is like shoving a beach ball underwater. It works for a moment, but eventually, that ball explodes back to the surface. Self-regulation is about acknowledging emotions without letting them dictate your actions. It's the ability to interrupt your default reactions, especially under pressure, and to choose responses that align with your long-term goals instead of your short-term impulses. People who master self-regulation develop a kind of inner emotional buffer. They may still feel anger, fear, frustration, but they know how to sit with those feelings without immediately acting on them. This is one of the most practical forms of emotional intelligence, and the one that transforms your reputation fastest. People quickly notice when you're someone who stays calm under pressure, doesn't escalate situations, and makes others feel safe instead of tense. 3. Internal motivation. The emotional fuel that keeps you going. Motivation isn't just about willpower, it's about your relationship with emotions like curiosity, desire, purpose, and resilience. High EQ individuals know how to tap into their own emotional drivers. Not just external rewards like promotions or praise, but the deeper, more sustainable reasons they do what they do. They know how to reconnect with their why, especially when they hit setbacks. They also understand that emotions drive action, for better or worse. When you're emotionally unmotivated, disconnected from purpose, lost in self-doubt, taking action feels impossible. But when you know how to reframe setbacks, process failure without self-sabotage, and stoke your own inner fire, you become resilient in ways that intelligence alone can't deliver. The key isn't to avoid negative emotions, it's to learn how to work with them. Frustration becomes data. Disappointment becomes a call to refocus. The ability to harness emotions as fuel instead of obstacles is emotional intelligence in action. 4. Empathy. Reading and understanding others' emotions. You've likely met people who can read the room effortlessly. They know when to crack a joke, when to offer support, and when to stay silent, all without anyone needing to say a word. That's empathy, the ability to sense and understand the emotions of others. It's not mind reading, but it's close. High empathy people pick up on emotional undercurrents, the tension in someone's voice, the subtle hesitation before they speak, the forced smile hiding frustration. Empathy also allows you to adjust your communication. You can frame ideas in ways that people are emotionally ready to hear. You can de-escalate tension before it explodes. And most importantly, you can offer what people actually need, not what you assume they need. Empathy doesn't mean agreeing with everyone. It means understanding where they're coming from, emotionally. It's a superpower in leadership, negotiation, parenting, anywhere human interaction happens. 5. Social skill. Navigating emotions in relationships. Finally, social skill ties all the other components together. It's the ability to apply emotional intelligence in real-time conversations, whether you're defusing conflict, building trust, giving feedback, or navigating awkward situations. Social skill is what allows you to Sense emotional shifts during conversations. Balance honesty with tact. Build rapport quickly, even with difficult people. Handle difficult conversations without avoiding them. Know when to push forward and when to pull back. It's the ultimate people skill, but it's not about charm or manipulation. It's about using your emotional awareness, of yourself and others, to guide conversations toward productive outcomes. Without social skill, your self-awareness and empathy stay locked inside your head. Social skill puts emotional intelligence into action, allowing you to influence, connect, and communicate at a whole new level. The whole system, and why it's greater than the sum of its parts. These 5 abilities, self-awareness, self-regulation, internal motivation, empathy, and social skill, don't work in isolation. They reinforce each other, creating a self-sustaining system. When you're self-aware, you notice emotional shifts in real time. When you can regulate those emotions, you stay calm enough to read others accurately. When you understand others, you can communicate in ways that lower defensiveness and build trust. When relationships go well, your internal motivation and confidence rise. When you feel confident and connected, your self-regulation improves even more. It's a virtuous cycle, and every step strengthens the others. Why emotional intelligence isn't optional anymore. The modern world, especially workplaces, rewards emotional intelligence like never before. Whether you're negotiating with clients, leading teams, dating, parenting, or simply navigating daily life, your ability to manage emotions defines how people perceive you, how much influence you have, whether people trust you, whether you handle stress effectively, how resilient you are after setbacks. And here's the secret. Most people aren't even aware this is happening. They think success is about skills and credentials. They have no idea how much of their fate is tied to how they handle their own emotions and read those of others. That's your advantage. Because the moment you stop living on emotional autopilot, the moment you start building your emotional intelligence intentionally, you separate yourself from the majority. In the next chapter, we'll dive deep into self-awareness, the first and most essential pillar of emotional intelligence. Because until you know what you're feeling and why, you can't control it. And if you can't control your emotions, they will always control you. Chapter 3. Self-awareness, the foundation of emotional intelligence. If emotional intelligence is the key to mastering your relationships, your influence, and your personal power, then self-awareness is the foundation everything else rests upon. Without self-awareness, there is no emotional intelligence, only emotional reactions. You can't regulate emotions you don't recognize. You can't understand others when you're blind to your own inner world. You can't build meaningful relationships if you're unaware of how you come across. Self-awareness is the ability to recognize your emotions as they arise, understand what triggers them, and see how they influence your behavior, decisions, and interactions. It's not just knowing that you feel stressed, it's understanding why. It's not just noticing you're angry, it's knowing what boundary was crossed. It's not just sensing that you're uncomfortable, it's knowing which fear or insecurity is driving that discomfort. When you develop true self-awareness, you stop being a passenger in your emotional life, tossed around by feelings you can't name or control. You become the pilot, able to navigate even the stormiest emotional weather with clarity and intention. Why most people are strangers to themselves. We live in a world that encourages external focus. From a young age, we're taught to pay attention to rules, expectations, and how others perceive us, but almost no one teaches us how to turn that focus inward. The result? Most people know more about their favorite TV shows than they do about their own emotional triggers. They can recite their professional skills but have no clue why they react defensively in meetings. They've built entire careers, even relationships, based on avoiding certain uncomfortable feelings without ever asking where those feelings come from. In short, most people react to life without understanding why. They think their emotions just happen. They don't see the invisible patterns, assumptions, and beliefs that shape those reactions. And so they remain trapped in the same cycles, the same arguments, the same frustrations, the same self-doubt over and over. Self-awareness is what breaks that cycle. Emotional blind spots. The cost of not knowing yourself. Lack of self-awareness doesn't just lead to internal confusion. It shapes how others experience you, often in ways you can't see. Imagine a manager who's convinced they're just passionate, but their team experiences them as intimidating and reactive. Or someone who sees themselves as a helpful fixer, but their friends experience them as controlling. Or the professional who thinks they're confident, but their co-workers see them as dismissive and defensive. These gaps between how we see ourselves and how others see us are called emotional blind spots. The less self-aware you are, the more blind spots you have, and the more you unknowingly undermine your influence, credibility, and relationships. Self-awareness is the only way to shrink those gaps. It's how you uncover the emotional habits you've been blind to, so you can stop unintentionally pushing people away or sabotaging your own success. Internal self-awareness versus external self-awareness. Self-awareness isn't just one thing. It has two dimensions. Internal self-awareness, knowing your own emotions, triggers, and patterns. This is your ability to understand why you react the way you do, what situations stir up anxiety, frustration, or defensiveness, and where those reactions come from. External self-awareness, understanding how you're perceived by others. This is your ability to see how your tone, body language, and reactions land with the people around you. The most emotionally intelligent people develop both. They know what's happening inside themselves, and they understand how they're being received externally. That combination is what allows them to adjust their communication, regulate their emotions, and build trust in any situation. Your emotional triggers, the blueprint you didn't choose. One of the fastest ways to build self-awareness is to identify your emotional triggers, those specific situations, words, or behaviors that provoke a disproportionate emotional response. You know the ones. When someone interrupts you, and you feel not just annoyed, but disrespected. When a coworker offers feedback, and instead of hearing advice, you hear criticism and rejection. When a friend cancels plans, and instead of feeling mildly disappointed, you feel unworthy and abandoned. These intense reactions don't come from nowhere. They're usually echoes of past experiences, moments where you learned, consciously or not, that certain situations were threats to your safety, worth, or identity. Self-awareness means tracing those reactions back to their roots. What are you really protecting yourself from? What old wound is this situation touching? Are you reacting to the present, or to the emotional ghosts of your past? Without that awareness, you'll keep reacting the same way, long after those old threats are gone. The power of emotional labeling. One simple but transformative self-awareness practice is emotional labeling, the ability to name exactly what you're feeling in the moment. Most people describe their emotions in vague terms. I'm stressed. I feel off. I'm mad. But stress isn't an emotion, it's a state. What's underneath it? Is it frustration, fear, disappointment, shame? The more precisely you can label your feelings, the more control you gain over them. Research shows that simply naming your emotions reduces their intensity and engages the rational parts of your brain, giving you the distance you need to respond intentionally instead of reacting blindly. Instead of saying, I'm stressed, try, I'm overwhelmed because I feel unprepared. I'm anxious because I'm afraid I'll disappoint someone. I'm frustrated because I feel ignored. Specific labels give you specific power, the power to work with your emotions, not against them. The stories you tell yourself. Emotions aren't just chemical reactions, they're shaped by the stories you tell yourself about what's happening. Imagine getting left on read after sending an important text. One person might shrug and assume the other person is just busy. Another might spiral into, they're ignoring me because they're mad. I always screw up relationships. Same situation, completely different emotional experiences. All because of the story each person tells themselves. Self-awareness includes spotting these stories and challenging them before they dictate your emotions. Ask yourself, what's the story I'm telling myself right now? Is this story based on facts or assumptions? What's a more balanced interpretation? These questions create a pause, and in that pause, you reclaim your power. Your emotional patterns, repeated reactions, unexamined beliefs. The longer you go without self-awareness, the more automatic your emotional patterns become. You might default to defensiveness whenever someone disagrees with you, not because you choose to, but because it's habit. These patterns were learned, and because they were learned, they can be unlearned. But only if you first become aware of them. Self-awareness helps you spot recurring emotional reactions, situations that always trigger the same feelings. Self-sabotaging habits, like shutting down, over-explaining, or avoiding tough conversations. Once you see the pattern, you can start replacing it with a healthier one. Self-awareness as a daily practice. Self-awareness isn't a one-time realization. It's a daily practice. Check in with yourself throughout the day. What am I feeling? What triggered it? What do I need right now? Journal your emotional reactions, especially the ones that surprise or confuse you. Ask for feedback. How do I come across in tough conversations? What's one thing I might not notice about myself? Reflect on past conflicts. What assumptions did I make? Were they true? The more you practice self-awareness, the more it becomes automatic, until you're no longer living in emotional autopilot, but leading your emotional life with clarity and purpose. The reward: control, confidence, and connection. With self-awareness comes control, not over your feelings, but over your response to them. You'll catch yourself before you react impulsively. You'll understand why you're feeling off, instead of numbing out or lashing out. You'll communicate your needs clearly, instead of expecting others to guess. Most importantly, self-awareness makes deeper connection possible, with yourself and with everyone around you. Because when you understand yourself, you finally show up as the real you. And that's the version people trust, respect, and connect with. Chapter 4. Self-regulation. Mastering your emotional reactions. If self-awareness is the ability to notice your emotions, self-regulation is the ability to manage them. It's what allows you to feel anger without losing your temper, experience fear without shutting down, or face disappointment without spiraling into self-criticism. It's the difference between being controlled by your emotions and using them as data to guide smarter choices. Self-regulation is the emotional skill most directly linked to trust and credibility. People trust those who stay composed under pressure, communicate clearly even in conflict, and respond thoughtfully instead of impulsively. Whether you're leading a team, negotiating a deal, or simply maintaining healthy relationships, your ability to regulate your emotions determines whether you come across as calm and capable, or reactive and erratic. This chapter breaks down how self-regulation works, why it's so difficult, and how you can develop it into a superpower, even if your emotions have always felt like they have a mind of their own. Why emotions feel so powerful. The amygdala hijack. First, let's get something clear. Strong emotional reactions aren't a sign of weakness. They're a sign that your brain is working exactly as it evolved to. Deep in your brain, the amygdala acts like an emotional alarm system. When it senses a threat, physical or emotional, it instantly triggers your fight, flight, or freeze response. Your body floods with adrenaline, your heart races, your breathing speeds up, and your rational brain temporarily goes offline. This happens in fractions of a second, often before you're consciously aware of the emotion at all. That's why you can feel anger, fear, or embarrassment before you even know why. This automatic reaction helped your ancestors survive, but in modern life, it backfires constantly. Your brain can't tell the difference between a life-threatening danger and a difficult conversation at work. To your amygdala, rejection feels like death. Criticism feels like an attack. Uncertainty feels like walking into a predator's den. Without self-regulation, you live at the mercy of this ancient system, reacting to stress, conflict, and discomfort with primitive instincts instead of intentional responses. The myth of control. It's not suppression. Many people mistake self-regulation for emotional suppression, the belief that managing emotions means stuffing them down, pretending they don't exist, or staying artificially calm at all times. This doesn't work. Suppressed emotions don't disappear, they leak out later, often in destructive ways. The frustration you bottle up at work might explode at home. The anxiety you suppress might show up as procrastination or perfectionism. The sadness you deny might turn into numbness. True self-regulation doesn't mean ignoring emotions. It means processing them in real time, so they don't control your actions. It's about acknowledging what you feel, without letting it dictate your behavior. The power of the pause. Your first line of defense. The cornerstone of self-regulation is the ability to pause between feeling and action. When you feel a strong emotion, anger, fear, embarrassment, defensiveness, Your first instinct will be to react, to snap back, to retreat, to defend yourself. That's your amygdala trying to take over. The pause is how you take control back. The pause can be one breath, a sip of water, a silent internal check-in. In that pause, you ask, what am I feeling right now? What triggered this? What's the most useful response? Not just the fastest one. This micro-moment, sometimes only a few seconds long, separates emotionally intelligent responses from emotional reactions. The longer you practice pausing, the easier it becomes, until calm, thoughtful responses become your new default. Emotional regulation in real life. Practical scenarios. Let's walk through some situations where self-regulation makes or breaks your success. 1. Receiving criticism. Without self-regulation, you immediately get defensive, explain why the feedback is unfair, or shut down completely. With self-regulation, you feel the initial sting, pause, and remind yourself that feedback is information, not an attack. You respond with curiosity instead of defensiveness. 2. Conflict with a partner or colleague. Without self-regulation, you raise your voice, interrupt, or withdraw to avoid the conversation. With self-regulation, you pause to name your own emotions, acknowledge what the other person might be feeling, and choose words that de-escalate instead of escalate. 3. Public speaking or performance anxiety. Without self-regulation, you let fear overwhelm you, your mind blanks, and you stumble through your words. With self-regulation, you recognize the fear, breathe into it, and shift your focus to the message you want to share, not the fear of judgment. Reframing emotion, from threat to data. A key part of self-regulation is changing your relationship to difficult emotions. Most people see fear, anger, or frustration as problems to eliminate, but emotionally intelligent people see them as valuable data. Anger tells you a boundary may have been crossed. Anxiety highlights uncertainty, inviting preparation. Frustration points to unmet expectations or unclear communication. Instead of rejecting these emotions, get curious about them. What is this feeling trying to tell me? What belief or value is being challenged here? Is this emotion helping me, or is it tied to an outdated fear? This shift, from fighting your emotions to learning from them, is a game changer. It turns every emotional reaction into an opportunity for insight and smarter action. Developing emotional flexibility. Self-regulation isn't just about calming down. It's about becoming flexible with your emotional responses. Rigid emotional patterns, always reacting defensively to feedback, or always avoiding confrontation, lock you into limited choices. Flexibility gives you options. Sometimes, direct confrontation is appropriate. Other times, stepping back and reflecting serves you better. Sometimes, humor can diffuse tension. Other times, vulnerability is the path to connection. Self-regulation allows you to choose, rather than being stuck in one default reaction. The role of self-talk in emotional regulation. Your inner dialogue fuels your emotions, especially in difficult moments. This is a disaster, fuels panic. They're doing this on purpose, fuels anger. I always screw up, fuels shame. Self-regulation includes managing your self-talk, shifting from catastrophizing or personalizing to more balanced, realistic inner language. Instead of, this meeting is going to be a disaster. Try, I'm prepared, and I can handle whatever happens. Instead of, they're ignoring me because they hate me. Try, they might be busy, I don't know the full story yet. The words you say to yourself shape your emotional state, and self-regulation means choosing words that support calm, confident action. Tools for self-regulation you can use today. 1. Box breathing. Inhale for 4 counts. Hold for 4 counts. Exhale for 4 counts. Hold for 4 counts. This simple breathing pattern immediately calms your nervous system and buys you time to choose your response. 2. The October 10 rule. When emotions surge, ask, how will I feel about this in 10 minutes? In 10 days? In 10 months? This reframes the situation and reduces emotional intensity. 3. Label and reframe. Name the emotion. I'm feeling frustrated. Reframe, that's because I expected clarity, I can ask for it. This shifts you from emotional overwhelm into problem-solving mode. The bottom line: your emotions are messengers, not masters. Self-regulation doesn't mean avoiding emotions. It means learning to work with them instead of being ruled by them. When you master self-regulation, you stay calm when others lose control. Respond thoughtfully instead of impulsively. Build trust by showing up consistently. Become the person people rely on when things get tough. This skill is the difference between reacting to life and leading your life. And the best part? Like any muscle, the more you practice it, the stronger it gets. In the next chapter, we'll dive into motivation. How emotional intelligence fuels drive, focus, and resilience even in the face of setbacks. Chapter 5. Internal motivation. The emotional engine behind resilience and success. When most people think of motivation, they imagine bursts of temporary inspiration, the kind you feel after a great TED Talk or reading a success story on social media. It's exciting, energizing, and fleeting. Real motivation, the kind that fuels consistent action, resilience, and long-term success, comes from somewhere deeper. It doesn't rely on external rewards like money, praise, or competition. It's driven by your internal emotional world, the connection between what you do and why it matters. This internal motivation is a core pillar of emotional intelligence because emotions are your deepest source of fuel. When you understand how to work with your emotions, not against them, you unlock a level of sustainable drive that no goal-setting app or morning routine can give you. In this chapter, we'll break down how emotional intelligence feeds motivation, why external rewards alone will always fall short, and how you can use your own emotions to create unshakable internal motivation, no matter how difficult the journey gets. The difference between external and internal motivation. Let's start with a simple truth. External motivation has limits. External motivators, praise from your boss, recognition from peers, financial rewards, can absolutely drive short-term effort. But the moment those rewards disappear, so does the motivation. It's a fragile form of drive because it relies on factors outside your control. Internal motivation, on the other hand, is fueled by your emotional connection to your own purpose, values, and sense of meaning. It's what keeps you going when no one's watching, when the work is hard, when there's no immediate payoff. Internal motivation is the difference between working late because you want to impress your boss, external, versus working late because you believe in what you're creating, internal. Going to the gym to fit someone else's image of success, external, versus going because it strengthens your sense of self-respect, internal. Pursuing a career path for status, external, versus pursuing it because it aligns with who you want to become, internal. People with high emotional intelligence excel at stoking their own internal fire, because they understand how their emotions connect to their deeper sense of purpose. Emotional intelligence and purpose alignment. At the heart of internal motivation is purpose, a clear understanding of why you're pursuing a goal and how it connects to your values, identity, and emotional needs. Without emotional intelligence, you may feel aimless or disconnected from your work, even if it's objectively successful. That's because you're chasing outcomes instead of emotional alignment. You can climb the ladder, win the awards, and check every box, but if those achievements don't resonate emotionally, motivation fades. People with high internal motivation constantly ask themselves, why does this matter to me? How does this align with who I want to become? What emotional need does this fulfill? Security, creativity, contribution, mastery. By keeping these emotional anchors front and center, they recharge their motivation directly from their values, not just from fleeting excitement. Emotional resilience, the fuel tank of motivation. Emotional intelligence also protects motivation by building resilience, your ability to stay engaged and adaptable when things don't go as planned. Without emotional resilience, every setback feels personal. Every failure triggers self-doubt. Every obstacle drains your energy and erodes your sense of worth. People with high emotional intelligence don't avoid these emotions, but they know how to process them productively. They see frustration not as a reason to quit, but as feedback to adjust their approach. They view self-doubt as part of growth, not proof they're unworthy. They experience disappointment without losing sight of their deeper purpose. This emotional flexibility, the ability to feel discomfort without losing motivation, is one of the defining traits of resilient, high-performing people. Emotional self-awareness and the motivation map. One of the most overlooked tools for building internal motivation is understanding your emotional drivers, the specific emotions that light you up and fuel your sense of meaning. Not everyone's motivated by the same emotions. Some people are driven by a desire to contribute, others by a need for mastery, others by a craving for adventure and discovery. When you understand your own emotional map, you can design goals and routines that actually nourish your internal motivation instead of draining it. Ask yourself, when do I feel most energized and alive? What am I doing in those moments? What emotions do I crave for my work? Pride, curiosity, connection, excitement. What activities make me lose track of time? And what emotions do they trigger? When you align your goals with these emotional drivers, you create motivation that replenishes itself, rather than relying on external rewards. Self-regulation and emotional momentum. Motivation isn't just about getting started. It's about staying engaged through the inevitable emotional ups and downs. This is where self-regulation, which we covered in the previous chapter, plays a critical role. People with strong self-regulation skills don't let temporary frustration or boredom derail their progress. They know how to pause and reframe challenges as opportunities to learn. Process disappointment without catastrophizing. Tap into their emotional why when external motivation fades. Use small emotional wins, completing a tough workout, solving a problem, making progress, to build momentum. The ability to generate emotional momentum, even after setbacks, is one of the most powerful ways emotional intelligence fuels internal motivation. Intrinsic motivation in action. A case study. Imagine two professionals working in the same field. Person A works for the paycheck. They do the work well enough to avoid criticism, but every day feels like a grind. If a better-paying job comes along, they'll take it. No loyalty, no emotional connection. Person B works for the meaning they find in solving complex problems and contributing to something bigger than themselves. Even on difficult days, they can reconnect to that sense of purpose. Their motivation is self-sustaining, not dependent on praise, promotions, or external rewards. The difference isn't talent or intelligence. It's emotional connection. Person B understands how their work fulfills their emotional needs, for mastery, contribution, or creativity, and that internal alignment is what keeps them engaged over the long haul. This is the power of internal motivation fueled by emotional intelligence. It turns work into a source of meaning, not just obligation. Turning values into emotional fuel. One of the most powerful ways to boost internal motivation is to connect your daily actions to your core values, not just in theory, but emotionally. If you value growth, how does today's challenge expand your skills? If you value connection, how does your work contribute to relationships? If you value creativity, how can you bring more innovation to your tasks? This emotional connection to values anchors motivation in something deeper than fleeting goals, making it far more resilient to stress, boredom, or external setbacks. Practical exercises for building internal motivation. 1. The Motivation Journal. Each day, write down one moment you felt energized. What triggered it? One emotional challenge. How did you respond? One way today's work connects to your bigger why. Over time, this practice helps you map your emotional drivers and develop the habit of reframing challenges into motivation fuel. 2. Emotional reframing. When you feel stuck, ask, what value does this challenge connect to? What would it feel like to overcome this? What's one small action I can take to create emotional momentum? This keeps your focus on internal emotional rewards, not just external outcomes. 3. Future self-visualization. Regularly picture your ideal future self, not just what they've achieved, but how they feel. Confident, purposeful, at peace. Then ask, what can I do today to feed those emotions? This makes motivation personal, not just task-based. The bottom line, emotion fuels everything. The secret to lasting motivation isn't willpower, it's emotional alignment. When your goals, values, and daily actions fuel the emotions you crave most, motivation becomes self-sustaining. That's the emotional intelligence advantage. You don't need external pressure to stay driven. Your own emotional world becomes your greatest source of energy. In the next chapter, we'll dive into empathy, the superpower that transforms how you understand, connect with, and influence others. Chapter 6. Empathy, the superpower that unlocks connection and influence. If self-awareness is about understanding yourself, empathy is its external twin, the ability to understand and feel what's happening inside someone else. Empathy is the invisible bridge between people, the force that allows you to read between the lines, sense tension before it's spoken, and recognize what others need, even when they don't say a word. At its core, empathy is emotional intelligence turned outward. It's what allows you to connect deeply, resolve conflicts before they escalate, and influence without manipulation. It's why some people command attention and trust the moment they enter a room, while others, despite intelligence or expertise, always feel slightly out of sync with the people around them. Mastering empathy isn't just about being kind or compassionate. It's a practical skill, one you can sharpen until it becomes second nature, allowing you to read situations, adapt your communication, and build trust faster than logic or authority ever could. In this chapter, you'll learn exactly how empathy works, why most people misunderstand it, and how you can develop it into your most valuable social skill. What empathy is, and what it isn't. Let's clear up the biggest misconception right away. Empathy is not the same as being nice. You can be empathetic without being agreeable. You can understand someone's feelings while setting firm boundaries. You can recognize someone's frustration without accepting blame for it. Empathy doesn't mean absorbing other people's emotions. It means understanding them clearly. There are 3 core types of empathy, and emotionally intelligent people develop all of them. 1. Cognitive empathy, mental understanding. This is your ability to understand what someone is thinking and why they feel the way they do. It's about perspective taking, mentally stepping into their world and seeing the situation through their eyes. It's not emotional, it's intellectual. You don't have to feel what they feel, but you understand why they feel it. This is crucial in negotiation, leadership, and conflict resolution. When you can anticipate how someone interprets your words or actions, you can adapt your approach without compromising your message. 2. Emotional empathy, feeling with. This is the classic version of empathy, feeling someone's emotions alongside them. If someone's grieving, you feel a hint of that sadness. If they're anxious, you pick up on that energy. Emotional empathy allows you to connect at a heart level, which builds trust and deepens relationships. But it's also the riskiest form of empathy. If you absorb too much, you lose objectivity. Highly empathetic people often need strong self-regulation to avoid emotional overload. You want to feel with people, not drown with them. 3. Compassionate empathy, understanding plus action. This is the ideal form of empathy. The ability to understand what someone feels, feel enough of it to care, and then respond in a way that's actually helpful. This is the empathy of skilled leaders, coaches, negotiators, and trusted friends. It's emotionally engaged but not emotionally hijacked. You care enough to act, but you keep enough distance to act wisely. Why empathy is harder than it sounds. If empathy is so valuable, why do so few people excel at it? 1. Emotional noise. Most people are so caught up in their own internal dialogue, their stress, their insecurities, their plans, that they have very little attention left for others. Empathy requires presence, and presence requires you to quiet your own noise long enough to truly observe someone else. 2. Bias and assumptions. We naturally assume that other people think like us, value what we value, and interpret situations the same way we do. They don't. Real empathy requires you to pause your assumptions and be curious about how someone else sees the world. 3. Emotional discomfort. Other people's pain, frustration, or anxiety can trigger your own discomfort. If you're not emotionally grounded, your first instinct may be to avoid their emotions, dismissing, minimizing, or changing the subject. True empathy means staying present even when emotions are uncomfortable. The empathy radar, learning to read what's unspoken. Empathy isn't just about what people say, it's about what they don't say. Emotionally intelligent people develop a kind of social radar, constantly scanning for subtle emotional cues in tone, body language, pacing, and energy shifts. Some signs you're reading include micro-expressions, fleeting facial expressions that reveal true feelings before they're masked. Body tension, crossed arms, clenched jaws, restless hands. Tone and pace shifts, when someone speeds up, slows down, or gets quieter. Incongruence, when someone's words say one thing, but their body says another. This radar is what allows you to adapt your approach in real time, softening your tone when someone's defensive, giving space when someone's overwhelmed, or pressing for clarity when someone's avoiding. Empathy in action. Real-world scenarios. Let's walk through examples where empathy transforms outcomes. 1. Difficult feedback at work. Without empathy, you deliver feedback bluntly, focusing only on facts. The employee gets defensive, hearing it as personal criticism. With empathy, you recognize they're anxious, soften your tone, and acknowledge the difficulty. They feel heard, and the feedback lands. 2. Conflict with a partner. Without empathy, you focus only on proving your point. With empathy, you sense their underlying frustration, ask what's really bothering them, and address the emotional layer instead of just the surface argument. 3. Negotiation. Without empathy, you push for your terms, assuming they care about the same priorities you do. With empathy, you uncover what matters most to them: status, certainty, flexibility, and frame your offer to meet those emotional needs. Empathy and influence. Why people trust you more when they feel understood. People aren't persuaded by logic alone, they're persuaded when they feel understood. When you demonstrate real empathy, people naturally lower their defenses. They feel safe, respected, and open, because they sense you're not just talking at them, you're truly seeing them. High EQ leaders, salespeople, and negotiators know that the fastest way to build influence isn't to dominate a conversation. It's to listen so well that the other person feels understood better than they understand themselves. That level of emotional attunement is rare, and it's magnetic. Practical exercises to build empathy today. 1. Emotional echoing. In conversations, practice reflecting back not just the words, but the emotions you sense. It sounds like you're frustrated because you don't feel heard. I can see how much this situation is weighing on you. It sounds like you're excited but also nervous about the next step. This shows you're tuned in and invites deeper trust. 2. Curiosity check-in. In every interaction, pause and ask yourself, what might they be feeling that they aren't saying? What's important to them in this situation? What assumptions am I making about their motives or emotions? This keeps your focus on their internal world, not just your own. 3. Emotion mapping. After key conversations, reflect on what emotions were present, theirs and yours. What cues signaled those emotions? How did your response affect their emotions? Over time, this builds your emotional pattern recognition. Empathy is influence. The ultimate lesson is this: people don't remember what you said nearly as much as they remember how you made them feel. When people feel truly seen, respected, and understood, you earn trust that can't be faked, and with trust comes influence. Empathy isn't weakness. It's not soft. It's the sharpest tool you have for building relationships, resolving conflicts, and leading with both heart and mind. In the next chapter, we'll explore how emotional intelligence helps you master the most difficult conversations and high-stakes conflicts, using empathy as both a shield and a sword. Chapter 7. Mastering Difficult Conversations, Applying Emotional Intelligence Under Pressure. If there's a true test of emotional intelligence, it's how you handle difficult conversations, the moments where emotions flare, stakes are high, and the outcome has real consequences. It could be a tough feedback session at work, a confrontation with a friend, a boundary-setting conversation with a partner, a negotiation with a difficult client. These conversations feel so difficult not just because of the topics involved, but because of the emotions they stir up. Fear, frustration, insecurity, defensiveness, all rising just below the surface. If you can't manage these emotions, both yours and theirs, the conversation spirals into misunderstanding, blame, and hurt feelings. But when you apply emotional intelligence, these same conversations become opportunities. Opportunities to build trust, deepen connection, solve real problems, and leave both sides feeling heard and respected. This chapter breaks down how emotional intelligence transforms tough conversations, and gives you a framework to approach any high-stakes dialogue with calm, clarity, and control. Why difficult conversations trigger emotional reactions. Let's start with why these conversations feel so uncomfortable. It's not just about the content, it's about what the content threatens. Criticism threatens our self-worth. Conflict threatens our sense of safety and connection. Uncertainty triggers fear of rejection or failure. Setting boundaries stirs guilt and the fear of disappointing others. Difficult conversations feel personal, even when they aren't meant to be. Your brain doesn't distinguish between physical threats and emotional threats. Both trigger your fight-flight-freeze response, flooding your system with adrenaline and making rational thinking almost impossible. This is why so many people avoid difficult conversations altogether. They'd rather tolerate frustration, resentment, or dysfunction than face that internal storm. But avoidance has a cost. Resentment festers. Misunderstandings multiply. Trust erodes. Problems that could have been solved with a few uncomfortable minutes become permanent fractures in relationships, all because emotions were left unchecked. Emotional intelligence. Your advantage in difficult conversations. The good news? Emotional intelligence, particularly self-awareness, self-regulation, and empathy, gives you the tools to manage this storm. It helps you recognize your own emotional triggers before they take over. Stay calm under pressure, even when the other person loses composure. Read and respond to the other person's emotional signals. Frame your message in a way that lowers defensiveness. Shift from confrontation to collaboration. With these tools, difficult conversations become less about winning and more about understanding and resolution. Step 1. Self-preparation. Managing your own emotions first. Every difficult conversation starts long before the first word is spoken. It starts with your internal preparation. Most people walk into high-stakes conversations emotionally loaded, already stressed, defensive, or bracing for conflict. Emotional intelligence means taking time to decompress and clarify your mindset before you engage. Ask yourself, what am I feeling about this conversation? Anxious, angry, defensive, insecure? What assumptions am I making about how the other person will react? What's my real goal here, to win, or to find common ground? What emotional triggers might show up for me, and how will I manage them? Grounding techniques before you start. Breathe deeply. 4 seconds in, 4 seconds hold, 6 seconds out. Reframe the conversation as a chance to solve a problem together, not a battle. Remind yourself, I can handle strong emotions, mine and theirs. This pre-conversation reflection lowers your baseline stress and helps you enter the dialogue from a place of calm curiosity instead of tension. Step 2. Set the emotional tone early. The first 60 seconds of any difficult conversation set the emotional tone for everything that follows. If you come in cold, blunt, or defensive, the other person's guard goes up, and it's almost impossible to recover. Emotionally intelligent people set the stage for openness, even when the content is uncomfortable. Examples of emotional framing. I know this is a sensitive topic, but I really want to understand your perspective and figure out the best way forward. I value our relationship, and I want to make sure we're being honest with each other, even when it's hard. This might feel awkward, but I'd rather have this conversation than let frustration build. This acknowledges the discomfort, makes it clear you're not attacking, and invites collaboration instead of confrontation. Step 3. Name emotions directly, yours and theirs. One of the most powerful emotional intelligence moves in a difficult conversation is to name the emotions in the room. When emotions go unspoken, they fester and shape the conversation from the shadows. When they're named openly, they lose power. Examples of emotional labeling. I'm feeling a little nervous bringing this up because I know it's sensitive. It seems like you're feeling frustrated, is that right? I care about getting this right because this relationship matters to me. Naming emotions, both your own and the other person's, creates psychological safety. It signals that emotions are valid and welcome, not something to hide. Step 4. Listen for emotion, not just content. Most people listen to respond, formulating their rebuttal while the other person talks. Emotionally intelligent people listen to understand, paying attention to both the words and the feelings underneath them. What to listen for. Changes in tone or pace, signs of stress or frustration. Repetition signals what they really care about. Incongruence, when their words say one thing, but their body says another. When you reflect back both what they said and how they feel, you lower their defensiveness and increase trust. Example: it sounds like you're frustrated because you felt out of the loop. Is that right? It seems like you're worried this will impact your reputation. This type of empathic listening diffuses tension faster than facts ever will. Step 5. Regulate in real time, when emotions flare. Even with preparation, difficult conversations can stir strong emotions: anger, defensiveness, shame. Emotional intelligence doesn't prevent these feelings, but it gives you a process to manage them before they hijack the conversation. In-the-moment regulation tactics. Pause before reacting. Take a sip of water, breathe deeply, buy yourself a few seconds. Name your emotions silently. I'm feeling defensive right now. Ask a question instead of making a statement. Curiosity diffuses reactivity. Example: instead of, "That's not true," try, "Can you help me understand why you see it that way?" This keeps the conversation collaborative instead of combative. Step 6. Close with clarity and emotional repair. The end of a difficult conversation matters as much as the beginning. Without closure, people leave feeling unresolved, emotions linger, and trust weakens. Emotionally intelligent people summarize and validate before closing, making sure both sides feel heard and clear about next steps. Example: closing. I appreciate you being open about this, even though it wasn't easy. Here's what I'm hearing. You want more clarity up front, and I need clearer feedback when something's not working. Does that feel right? I know this was uncomfortable. Thanks for sticking with it. This type of emotional repair work protects the relationship and makes future difficult conversations easier. The emotional intelligence advantage. Difficult conversations aren't just tests of communication, they're tests of emotional intelligence in action. Your ability to stay aware of your own emotional triggers. Regulate your reactions under stress. Tune into the other person's emotional state. Frame your message in a way that lowers defensiveness. Close the conversation with clarity and care. This is what separates people who thrive in high-stakes conversations from those who avoid them or blow them up. Master these skills, and you'll unlock not just smoother conversations, but deeper trust, stronger influence, and a reputation for handling even the toughest situations with calm confidence. In the next chapter, we'll explore how emotional intelligence helps you build deep, authentic connections in every area of your life, even with people who seem impossible to reach. Chapter 8. Building genuine, deep connections, emotional intelligence in everyday relationships. At its core, emotional intelligence is about human connection. Success, influence, and fulfillment all hinge on your ability to connect authentically with others, to create relationships rooted in trust, understanding, and mutual respect. Whether you're trying to strengthen your marriage, become a better leader, or simply navigate friendships with greater ease, the foundation is always the same: understanding and managing emotions, both yours and theirs. High EQ individuals don't just excel at handling conflicts or influencing people when the stakes are high. They thrive in the quiet, everyday moments where relationships are built or broken. They listen differently. They make people feel seen, heard, and valued in ways that create lasting bonds. This chapter explores how emotional intelligence transforms everyday interactions into opportunities for deeper connection, and how you can cultivate relationships that not only thrive but also fuel your personal and professional growth. The core of connection: emotional safety. The first ingredient in any deep connection isn't shared interests or personality compatibility, it's emotional safety. Emotional safety is the feeling that you can be yourself without fear of judgment, rejection, or manipulation. It's knowing that your emotions, even the messy, uncomfortable ones, are welcome. It's trusting that the other person will respond with care and curiosity, not criticism or defensiveness. People with high emotional intelligence naturally create this safety because they've built it within themselves first. They're comfortable with their own emotions, which allows them to handle others' emotions without flinching, fixing, or withdrawing. Emotional safety in action. When a friend vents about their struggles, you resist the urge to solve, and instead say, "That sounds really tough. I'm here for you." When your partner admits they're overwhelmed, you don't take it personally. You ask, what would feel supportive right now? When a colleague makes a mistake, you focus on understanding what happened rather than assigning blame. This steady, non-reactive presence is rare and magnetic. It's what makes people trust you with their real selves. Presence, the gift that builds trust. Nothing destroys connection faster than feeling unimportant. When someone's distracted, half listening, or mentally elsewhere, it sends a clear message. You don't matter. High EQ individuals know that presence is the currency of connection. They aren't just physically there, they're emotionally available. They listen with their whole body, tuning into both words and emotions, offering their undivided attention. Presence habits that deepen connection. Put away your phone during conversations. Make consistent eye contact, without staring. Respond to emotion, not just content. Use small gestures, nodding, mirroring, subtle affirmations, to show you're fully engaged. The more present you are, the safer and more valued people feel in your presence, and the deeper your connection grows. Emotional awareness in relationships. Understanding your impact. Every interaction you have sends emotional ripples into your relationships. The words you choose, the tone you use, the body language you project, all of it shapes how others feel about themselves and about you. Without emotional awareness, you may unknowingly shut people down with dismissive body language, trigger defensiveness with a harsh tone, create distance by avoiding vulnerable topics. High EQ individuals constantly ask themselves, how am I showing up right now? How might my tone or energy feel to the other person? What emotional signals am I sending, intentionally or unintentionally? This awareness allows you to course-correct in real time, adjusting your approach to build, not erode, trust. The power of emotional curiosity. Most people assume they understand their friends, partners, and colleagues after spending enough time together. But high EQ individuals know that people are emotional landscapes, always evolving, always deeper than they appear. They stay curious, asking, what's really driving their reaction right now? What do they need emotionally? Reassurance, validation, space. What aren't they saying, and why? This curiosity shifts you from reacting to the surface behavior to understanding the deeper emotional story beneath it, which allows you to respond in ways that feel tailored and deeply caring. Examples of emotional curiosity in action. When your partner gets snappy, instead of snapping back, you ask, rough day. Want to talk about it? When your friend withdraws, you check in gently. I've noticed you've been quieter lately. Is something on your mind? When a colleague seems defensive, you ask, are you worried about how this will affect your project? These small moments of curiosity signal care, and care is the foundation of connection. Repairing emotional micro-damages. Even in the healthiest relationships, small emotional missteps happen all the time. An offhand comment, a distracted response, a missed bid for connection. Over time, these micro-damages accumulate, creating invisible distance. Emotionally intelligent people don't ignore these moments. They repair them quickly. Micro-repair examples. Hey, I think I came across as dismissive earlier. That wasn't my intention. I noticed I was a little short with you. I was stressed, but that's no excuse. I want to circle back to what you said yesterday. I don't think I gave it the attention it deserved. These small repairs restore trust and show that you're aware of your emotional impact, which deepens the bond. Empathy, the heartbeat of connection. Empathy, the ability to feel with someone, is the emotional glue that holds relationships together. It allows you to celebrate their wins as if they were your own. Sit with their sadness without rushing to fix it. Understand their triggers, needs, and insecurities, and respond with care. Empathy doesn't mean agreement. Emotionally intelligent people know you can validate someone's feelings without agreeing with their perspective. I can see why this is so upsetting. That makes sense. I get why you're feeling overwhelmed right now. That reaction totally fits. Anyone would feel that way. Validation soothes emotional defenses, even when you need to disagree or set a boundary. The courage to be vulnerable. Deep connection isn't just about understanding others. It's about letting others understand you. Emotionally intelligent people aren't afraid to show vulnerability. They own their insecurities, doubts, and struggles, not to be dramatic, but to invite authenticity. When you reveal your humanity, you give others permission to do the same. Examples of vulnerable connection. I'm feeling insecure about how I handled that. Can I get your perspective? This is uncomfortable for me to bring up, but I value our relationship enough to do it. I know I've been distant, I've been overwhelmed, but that's no excuse. Vulnerability creates emotional safety, the condition for deep, lasting connection. Emotional boundaries. Protecting connection. Emotional intelligence isn't about absorbing everyone else's emotions. It's also about protecting your own. High EQ people set clear emotional boundaries, recognizing that they can care deeply without taking responsibility for others' feelings, sacrificing their own emotional needs, becoming enmeshed in other people's emotional storms. They know that healthy relationships balance connection and autonomy, both people feeling seen, heard, and respected as separate individuals. The long game. Consistent emotional investment. Deep connections aren't built in dramatic moments. They're built in small emotional deposits made consistently over time. High EQ individuals know that every interaction, from how you say good morning to how you handle a disagreement, either builds or erodes connection. When you show up with presence, curiosity, empathy, vulnerability, emotional consistency, you create relationships that can withstand conflict, evolve through change, and become a true source of strength and meaning. The bottom line. Emotional intelligence equals relationship intelligence. Mastering emotional intelligence doesn't just make you better at handling your own emotions. It transforms how you relate to everyone around you. Whether at work, at home, or in your social circles, the ability to understand, regulate, and respond to emotions with skill and care is the key to building relationships that not only last, but thrive. In the next chapter, we'll explore how emotional intelligence helps you navigate social dynamics and read people effortlessly in any situation. Chapter 9. Social Intelligence. Reading people and navigating any social situation with confidence. If emotional intelligence helps you understand yourself and connect one-on-one, social intelligence expands that skill to the broader world of group dynamics, social hierarchies, and unspoken rules. Social intelligence is the ability to read the emotional temperature of a room, sense what's happening beneath the surface, and adapt your approach to match the emotional and relational needs of the moment. It's what allows some people to effortlessly command attention, navigate awkward situations, or blend into any social setting with ease, while others seem to stumble through interactions, unaware of the subtle signals shaping the room. This is not manipulation. Social intelligence isn't about faking connection. It's about being so attuned to the emotional and social landscape that you can navigate it naturally and confidently. In this chapter, we'll explore how social intelligence works, how it connects to emotional intelligence, and how you can develop the ability to read the room, adapt to any audience, and become socially agile without losing your authenticity. The anatomy of social intelligence. Social intelligence is built on 3 overlapping abilities. 1. Emotional awareness of others, people reading. This is your ability to sense what others are feeling, even when they don't say it directly. It's tuning into facial expressions, micro-expressions, tone shifts, body language, and subtle cues that reveal. Is this person open or closed off? Are they comfortable or anxious? Are they feeling heard or dismissed? Are they engaged or mentally checking out? Without this awareness, you miss the unspoken half of every interaction. 2. Situational awareness, reading the room. This is your ability to sense the emotional climate of a group or environment. Every room has a social pulse, a blend of moods, power dynamics, tensions, and unspoken rules. High social intelligence allows you to walk into any space and quickly sense. Is this a relaxed or formal environment? Who holds social power here? Is there underlying tension or harmony? What's the emotional tone? Excitement, anxiety, competition? Without this awareness, you risk misjudging tone, timing, or approach, making you seem out of sync. 3. Adaptive social behavior, flexibility. This is the ability to adjust your tone, body language, and communication style to fit the emotional and social context, without losing your core identity. It's knowing when to Take charge or step back. Add humor or maintain seriousness. Speak directly or soften your delivery. Match energy levels or ground them. Without this flexibility, you risk coming across as socially tone-deaf, either too aggressive, too passive, or simply out of step with the emotional flow. Why social intelligence matters more than ever. In a world where relationships, influence, and collaboration are essential to both personal and professional success, your ability to read people and situations is more valuable than any technical skill. In leadership, social intelligence helps you sense unspoken tensions, build trust, and foster collaboration. In sales and negotiation, it helps you read what the other party really values, and where they're flexible. In personal relationships, it helps you navigate conflict, offer the right emotional support, and keep communication flowing. Social intelligence is emotional intelligence applied at scale. The skill that allows you to succeed not just with individuals, but across teams, organizations, families, and communities. How to develop social intelligence. Core practices. 1. Become an emotional observer. Most people walk into social situations focused on themselves. What should I say? How do I look? What will they think of me? High SQ, social intelligence quotient. Individuals flip this. They observe first. The moment they enter a room, they scan. What's the general mood here? Who seems comfortable, and who doesn't? Who's dominating the conversation? Who's being ignored? Where's the energy flowing? Toward excitement, competition, tension? They tune into these signals before deciding how to engage, making them naturally in sync with the group's emotional rhythm. Try this. The emotional temperature scan. Whenever you enter a new space, spend the first 60 seconds simply observing. No talking. Focus on body language, tone, and facial expressions. Ask yourself, what's the mood here? What's unspoken but obvious? 2. Master the art of subtle listening. Most people listen to words. High SQ individuals listen to layers, what's being said, what's being avoided, and the emotions that shape both. They pay attention to changes in tone, defensiveness, hesitation, excitement. Pacing shifts, rushing past discomfort, slowing down to emphasize a point. Emotional incongruence, saying, I'm fine with tight shoulders and a forced smile. By catching these subtle signals, they spot conflict before it erupts and needs before they're voiced. Try this. Emotional echoing. In conversations, practice reflecting back not just what someone said, but the emotion underneath it. Example. They say, it's fine, whatever. You say, it sounds like you're frustrated. Am I reading that right? This level of emotional attunement builds instant trust. 3. Adapt without losing authenticity. Socially intelligent people are chameleons, but not fakes. They adjust their communication style based on the formality of the setting, the emotional state of the other person, the goal of the interaction. But they never lose their core values. They don't pretend to be someone else. They simply show different facets of themselves, depending on what the situation calls for. Example adaptations. With an anxious colleague, slower speech, reassurance, more listening. With an energetic group, faster speech, humor, matching energy. With a tense client, calm tone, logical framing, emotionally neutral. Try this. Flexible framing. Before entering any social situation, ask, what's the emotional tone here? What energy will match this situation best? How can I show up authentically, but in a way that puts others at ease? 4. Spot and navigate social hierarchies. Every group, whether a corporate team, a dinner party, or a family gathering, has an unspoken social structure. Some people hold more influence, others less. Some speak easily, others hold back. Social intelligence allows you to map this hierarchy quickly, so you know who to engage first, how to draw quieter people in, when to assert yourself and when to observe. This awareness makes you seem socially fluent, someone who just gets the room. Try this. Social mapping. Next time you join a group, mentally map. Who's leading the conversation? Who's the emotional center, the one everyone looks to for approval? Who's disengaged, and why? This map helps you navigate more strategically. 5. Influence through emotional alignment. Social intelligence isn't just about understanding others. It's about influencing through emotional resonance. You influence best when you align your emotional energy with the group's. Address unspoken concerns before they're voiced. Speak to both logic and emotion. People follow those who understand their emotional experience, not just their surface concerns. Example. In a tense meeting, instead of launching into facts, you begin with, "I know there's a lot of uncertainty right now, and that's uncomfortable. Let's walk through this step by step." This emotional alignment lowers resistance and builds trust. The social intelligence advantage. In every area of life, from boardrooms to bedrooms, from casual conversations to high-stakes negotiations, social intelligence gives you the unfair advantage of emotional fluency. It's not mind reading. It's mastering the art of paying attention, tuning into the unspoken, and adapting with emotional precision. This ability makes you trusted in leadership, magnetic in social settings, respected in difficult conversations, influential without manipulation. In the final chapter, we'll explore how all these pieces, self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation, empathy, and social intelligence, come together to form the ultimate emotional intelligence roadmap for life. Chapter 10. Emotional Mastery. Integrating emotional intelligence into every aspect of your life. Emotional intelligence isn't just a skill you pull out for conflict resolution or leadership moments. True emotional mastery means weaving emotional intelligence into the very fabric of your daily life, so it becomes your natural way of thinking, acting, and responding, not a tool you consciously have to remember to use. It's the difference between someone who knows how to be emotionally intelligent in specific situations, and someone who simply is emotionally intelligent no matter where they are, who they're with, or what they're facing. This final chapter is your blueprint for lifelong emotional mastery. How to make emotional intelligence not just something you practice, but something you embody. Whether in relationships, career, personal growth, or decision-making, emotional intelligence becomes the lens through which you navigate life. Emotional mastery begins with self-mastery. Every external interaction, every relationship, every conflict, every opportunity is shaped by how you relate to yourself. If your internal world is chaotic, unexamined, or emotionally reactive, that turbulence spills into everything you do. Your communication, your decisions, your stress responses. True emotional mastery starts with self-awareness and self-regulation, not as occasional exercises, but as daily habits. Daily self-awareness practices. Emotional check-ins. Pause 3 to 4 times a day to ask, what am I feeling? What triggered it? How am I responding? Internal pattern spotting. Notice repeated emotional cycles, the triggers and reactions you experience in relationships, work, and personal setbacks. Naming emotions clearly. Avoid vague terms like stressed or fine. Practice identifying emotions with precision. Frustration, disappointment, excitement, uncertainty. Self-regulation habits. Emotional pauses. Whenever you feel triggered, practice buying yourself 3 to 5 seconds of space before you respond. That pause disrupts automatic reactions. Grounding rituals. Whether it's deep breathing, a quick walk, or reframing your self-talk, have go-to methods for calming your nervous system in real time. Emotional decoding. Ask yourself, what is this emotion telling me? What do I need right now? Clarity, boundaries, or action? Mastering your emotions before they control you is the foundation of all emotional intelligence. Applying emotional intelligence to decision-making. Most people assume decisions are driven by logic, but emotions are always influencing your perception of risk, reward, and possibility. When you develop emotional intelligence, you gain the ability to separate temporary emotions from long-term priorities. Distinguish between emotional impulse and genuine intuition. Recognize fear-based decisions versus purpose-driven ones. Emotionally intelligent decision process. Pause to assess your emotional state. Before making any big decision, ask, what emotions are driving me right now? Fear, excitement, insecurity, hope. Zoom out. Would this decision still feel right if you were calm and detached? Run the October 10th 10 test. How will you feel about this decision in 10 minutes, 10 days, and 10 months? Listen to emotions. Don't obey them. Emotions offer data. They highlight risks, desires, and unmet needs. But they aren't commands. Emotionally intelligent people consult their feelings, but don't let them drive the car. The more you integrate emotional intelligence into your decision-making process, the wiser and calmer your choices become. Emotional intelligence in career growth and leadership. No matter what industry you're in, your career success will ultimately depend far less on technical skill and far more on how well you understand and manage yourself, how effectively you communicate and collaborate, how you navigate pressure, conflict, and change. In short, your emotional intelligence will make or break your career. Emotional mastery in professional life. Self-regulation under pressure. Your ability to stay composed when others are reactive makes you a natural leader. Empathic leadership. Leaders who understand their team's emotional needs inspire trust, loyalty, and motivation. Social intelligence in teams. Reading group dynamics. Who's disengaged, who's tense, where unspoken conflicts lie, allows you to manage proactively, not reactively. Constructive feedback. Emotionally intelligent professionals deliver even difficult feedback with clarity and care, ensuring it's heard, not resisted. The difference between someone who works well with others and someone who rises into leadership is almost always emotional intelligence, the ability to manage themselves and others under pressure. Emotional intelligence in conflict resolution. Conflict is inevitable in work, friendships, family, and partnerships. Emotionally intelligent people don't avoid conflict. They navigate it with skill and courage. The emotionally intelligent conflict process. Emotional self-check first. Before addressing conflict, assess your emotional state, calm or triggered, defensive or open. Empathic framing. Approach with curiosity, not accusation. I want to understand what's going on works better than you always. Name the emotional layer. Beneath every conflict are unmet emotional needs. To feel respected, understood, valued. Address those needs directly. Separate intent from impact. Emotionally intelligent people know that just because someone's actions hurt you doesn't mean they meant to. They seek clarity before judgment. Collaborative repair. Focus on mutual understanding and solutions, not proving who's right. Emotional intelligence de-escalates conflicts before they become irreparable. Emotional intelligence in personal relationships. From lifelong friendships to romantic partnerships, emotional safety, trust, and growth come from the daily application of emotional intelligence. High EQ relationship habits. Curiosity over assumption. Don't assume you know how someone feels. Ask. Emotional repair rituals. When small hurts happen, and they always do, acknowledge them quickly before they fester. Emotional vulnerability. Share not just your opinions, but your fears, needs, and desires, and invite the same. Emotional boundaries. Care for others' feelings without over-functioning for them. Emotionally intelligent relationships don't avoid conflict. They build trust by navigating it together. Emotional intelligence and self-compassion. Perhaps the most overlooked aspect of emotional intelligence is how you treat yourself. When you fail, do you respond with self-criticism or self-compassion? When you feel insecure, do you spiral, or pause and comfort yourself? When you feel proud, do you dismiss it, or savor it? Self-compassion practices. Talk to yourself like a friend. When you're struggling, ask, if my best friend were feeling this way, what would I say to them? Normalize imperfection. High emotional intelligence includes recognizing you'll never get it all right, and that's okay. Celebrate emotional wins. Noticing when you paused instead of reacting, set a boundary, or named your needs. These are victories worth celebrating. Without self-compassion, emotional intelligence becomes exhausting performance rather than genuine growth. Making emotional intelligence a lifestyle. Emotional mastery isn't something you turn on in difficult conversations and turn off at home. It's a way of being, a way of relating to yourself, others, and the world around you with awareness, curiosity, and care. Your daily emotional mastery habits. Start the day with emotional check-in. What's my mood? What's shaping it? What do I need to handle it well today? Tune into subtle cues. In every conversation, listen for the emotion beneath the words. Pause when triggered. Build micro-pauses into your day to avoid emotional autopilot. End the day with reflection. What emotional choices did I make today? Which ones served me? Which could I improve tomorrow? Over time, these habits shift emotional intelligence from something you do to who you are. The real reward of emotional mastery. Emotional intelligence isn't just about better communication or conflict resolution. It's about freedom. Freedom from being ruled by triggers. Freedom from misreading others. Freedom from repeating the same relationship mistakes. Freedom to handle life's hardest moments with grace. Freedom to build the relationships, career, and life you truly want. Emotional intelligence is the foundation for every other kind of success, and the gift that keeps evolving with you for life. Final thought. You don't need to master it all at once. Every day, with every conversation and every pause, you're building your emotional intelligence muscle. And with it, you're building a life where you are in control, not of everything that happens, but of how you respond to all of it.